360 workshop. I'll be your host, Jacinth Gudetti, and today we're going to be learning how to how to use Fusion 360. And disclaimer: this is a beginner class, so if you've used CAD software in the past, a lot of this is going to be reiteration of material, but it's going to be great practice either way. And so let's get into. So while you guys are opening up Fusion 360 and getting that up and ready, if you guys haven't downloaded it yet, go to the Facebook page where the download link is there, and try to sign up. And it shouldn't take too long to download. But while you guys are doing that, I'll talk a bit about Fusion 360 specifically. So next page. Okay. So Fusion 360 is a 3D CAD modeling software by the Autodesk Foundation company. And you can use CAD software to create 3D models of just about anything you can imagine. And if you guys have used Solidworks before, since it's very popular in UCSD, it's very similar to Solidworks, except the biggest difference I find is the file organization system. So Solidworks separates their files into parts and assemblies. Parts are going to be individual single parts that you can make like a bolt or a screw. And then assembly would be a bunch of parts together in one file arranged. So if you're making a car, for example, you'd make a wheel as a part, and you would put the wheel into a full car in a car assembly. However, Fusion 360 doesn't have this, and that's why I kind of don't prefer it, but you can still make it work. And Fusion 360 has something called drawings, where you can create single parts and also create assemblies within the same file. So to organize that, mostly comes down to your own file system management. So you'd have to label a specific drawing an assembly or a specific drawing part. All right, so I assume everyone's got their Fusion 360 software up and running. Give me a thumbs up if you guys have your software up and running. Good, Elsa, thank you. All right. All right, so let's get right into it. If you guys don't have it up yet, please do get it up. So today's project is going to be a snap fit water bottle, and it's going to consist of two parts: the body of the water bottle, and the cap. And we're going to learn 5 skills today. If I can move this out of the way. Okay, so we're going to learn how to sketch, how to extrude, how to fillet, I think, shell, and assembly. So sketch is going to be a simple 2D drawing. Extrude is bringing that sketch up into the 3D sphere. And filleting, I think fillet or fillet, is going to be rounding off edges. Shelling is going to be hollowing out a certain shape. And assembly is going to be simply putting parts together. So there are any questions up to this point? No? All right, so if there's no questions, let's move on to actually making the product. So first, we're going to create a new project. If you guys have the PowerPoint is posted on the Facebook link, so you can open that up while I'm doing this. So for now, let's move on to the actual Fusion 360 software right here. And you guys should be seeing a screen similar to mine with Untitled and everything here. So first thing we're going to do is create a project. So at the top left is a data panel. And when you open this up, I'm going to go back home actually. I'm going to create a new project. And this project I created earlier as practice, but we're going to create a new one. And I'm going to call this project IEEE bottle V3. This is going to be, for you guys, it's going to be just IEEE bottle, but for me, it's going to be V3 because this is the 3rd time I'm making it. So go ahead and create new project. And from now on, every single part or assembly that you create is going to be saved to this project file. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this. And if you double click on this project, you'll see nothing is uploaded here. So we're going to be adding new files and designs to this. So once you've created that, go ahead and X this out. And you can access it again by pressing Show Data Panel. So not a big deal. And you'll be at this screen, Untitled Sketch. So what we're going to do first is we're going to create a sketch. So go ahead and go to the top left here, Create Sketch. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a circle similar to this. So it's simply going to be one circle centered at origin to 100 millimeters. So let's go ahead and do that right now. And if there are any questions, please feel free to stop me and I'll answer them as best I can. So first thing we're going to do is specify a plane. We're going to choose the XY plane. All right, and now that we're here, you can use your mouse to scroll around and grab parts and things like that. So we're going to first create a circle using the circle tool. So start out at the center and drag this out. We really don't care about the length, so I'm just going to do a random length here. And the reason is because I'm going to modify this later right now with the sketch dimension tool. And this is similar to coding syntax. You don't have to use the sketch dimension tool, but it's just, it helps you with editing later on in case you want to change the size of the bottle or whatever. So we're going to use the sketch dimension tool here. And we're going to click this. And now we're going to specify 100 millimeters, which is roughly the diameter of a hydro flask. So use your mouse to scroll in, and there you go. So if you guys don't have access to a standard mouse, you can use this this doohickey here to navigate your drawing. And also you can use, let's bang this out of the way. You can also use the plus and minus tool here to zoom in, zoom out. But I highly recommend using a mouse regardless. So that's going to be our first tool, and to get out of any tool that we're using, any mode, simply press escape and you'll go back to a regular cursor. All right, so part one is almost done. All we're going to do next is we're going to extrude this shape. So go ahead and hit finish sketch. So now that sketch is completed, and we're going to take this into the third dimension. So make sure that this circle is highlighted blue as seen here. We're going to extrude it by 300 millimeters. And if you hit shift and the center scroll wheel, you'll be able to orbit around your object. And you should have something like this. So does anyone have questions at this point? All right, we'll move on then. So now that we've created this shape, you notice here we have an untitled star. So good practices, we'll just save this and we'll choose our location. So mine's already my location is already IEEE bottle V3, but if it's not that, you can choose whatever project you want here that you want to save to. And I'm going to name this body. So this is going to be our bottle body. So I'm going to name body and we're going to hit save. All right. And now we're going to create the bottle itself. So we've created the cylinder, now we're going to hollow it out. And the way we're going to hollow it out is using the shell function. Now what the shell function does is it removes material from a part. So we're going to use the shell function and we're going to specify a face here. So going back to the slides, we've done this, and so now we're going to use the shell function, and we're going to specify a thickness of 3 millimeters. So go ahead, make sure shell function is selected, and we're going to specify 3 millimeters. And now you should have a hole like this. So any questions up till this point? No? All right. So next up, we're going to create the rounded bottom of the bottle. So if you can look at my video camera, you can see most bottles have like a rounded edge of some sort. Mine's isn't as clear, but it is rounded. So we're going to create that rounded edge on the bottom. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a very pleasant experience putting it down. So to create this, we're going to use the fillet tool. And what we're going to do is start from the inside. If we start from the outside, it's going to cause problems if we fillet too much. So going back to the slides, we're going to start from the outside, from the inside, and then do the outside edge. So just follow my lead, and we're going to choose the fillet tool, and we're going to select this edge right here. And for our purposes, we're going to choose 10 millimeters, and this is going to specify the radius of the fillet. So the inner radius is now 10 millimeters thick, And the outer radius, we're also going to replicate 10 millimeters. And you can make it a different diameter, but we want to keep it consistent. So 10 millimeters, and you should end up with something like this. So any questions up till this point? None? Okay. Let's move on. So now that we have our basic bottle shape, we're going to create the snap portion of our cap. And to do that, we have to create a little lip on the top. So a little lip here. Right now it's all open, but we're going to create a simple lip where the latches can actually grab onto like that. So going back to the slides, now we should be at this section of the body called the lip. So we're going to create a new sketch based on the top of the cylinder face. And we're going to create two circles, 100 millimeters and 90 millimeters. And so let's begin. So since we specified a thickness of 5 millimeters, this inner circle is actually 85 millimeters. So, sorry, 95 millimeters. So the smaller circle is going to be 5 millimeters inboard. So let's create a new sketch. And we're going to specify the plane of the sketch to be this circle right here, not the edge, not anything else, just this circle, circle right here. And we're going to create two circles. And like before, I don't care about the size. I just want to create two circles. And I'm going to specify the dimension with the sketch dimension tool. And I'm going to click this. And this is going to be 100 millimeters, which is going to be the diameter of the outer circle. And this is going to be 90 millimeters, which is going to be the diameter of the inner circle. And I do not like how these went out so far. I don't know why I did that. Okay, so now we're back to reality. And now we've created our sketch. Let's hit finish sketch. And we're going to extrude this shape here. We're going to extrude this to create our lip. And to do that, we're going to hit the extrude tool. And you might notice two sections. So we're going to specify both sections. These two sections, and we're going to extrude by 5 millimeters. And that creates our little lip. So, so with that, part one is done. I'm going to hit save again. I don't really care about the description, so I'm going to leave it as user saved. All right, so up till this point, part one is done. Are there any questions? Because part two is going to be a lot more difficult. And
could you show your screen when you're actually doing it? Because all we can see is the slides.
oh wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay. I thought I was sharing the screen itself. Let me do that again. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna share the whole screen. So can you see my Fusion 360 now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought the whole screen was sharing.
No, you're good.
All right. So is everyone okay till this point, or should we review anything that you guys were confused on?
Could you review it? I got kind of lost.
Okay.
But that's only if everyone else wants to. Also.
All right, that's not a problem. We should have time. So the way it works is I'll go back through the sketches. So I'll use the timeline feature to go back. So first we created a sketch here. So looking at sketches, first we initially created a 100 millimeter circle like this. And then we used the extrude command. So when we hit finish sketch, we then extruded it. So we ended up with a cylinder that looked like this. So is that clear so far? All right. And after that, we used the fillet tool the shell tool, my bad, to create a 3 millimeter thickness all around the body of the bottle. So that basically functions like hit shell and then select the face of your object. So I'm going back here. So all we did was select the top circle here, and then we used the shell tool and specified a thickness of 3 millimeters. So at that point, we've created the bottle basically. So is there anything else after that you're confused on?
No, that's good. Thank you.
All right. And we also did the fillet part, but you don't need to do it. It doesn't really affect the functionality of the bottle. We'll get to this later on if you still want to do it. All right, with that, part one is done. And it should look something like this. All right, now we're going to create the cap, and this is where it's going to get a bit trickier, but it shouldn't be too bad. So to create the cap is going to be simply, it's going to be the same thing as before. We're going to sketch a circle of 100 millimeters in diameter and extrude it by 60 millimeters. But first, before we do that, we want to first save this. And let me drag this out to the current state it is. And we're going to create a new design right here. Hit new design. And so now this is going to be our cap. And we're going to hit new sketch and specify XY plane once again. And like before, we're going to create another circle and sketch dimensions to 100 millimeters. And like before, once we've done the sketch, we don't need to worry about it anymore, so we'll hit finish sketch. And we will extrude this by 60 millimeters. And you should end up with something like that. Any questions up till this point? All right, so let's move on and work on creating the latch system. So to do that, we're going to have to create a more complex sketch than before. It's going to end up looking something like this. So we're going to have to create two circles. One is going to be 90 millimeters, and one is going to be 85 millimeters. And we're also going to create a center rectangle. And if you notice in the tools section, the regular rectangle is not a center rectangle. So I'll show you how to get to that. And we're going to make it 20 by 100 millimeters as seen here. So let's jump right into it. So first, we're going to create a new sketch. And we're going to specify the plane as this top plane right here. And we're going to create two circles again. One circle here, another circle here. And we're going to use sketch dimensions to actually define the shape. So this is going to be 90 millimeters. And this is going to be 85 millimeters. Now, if you noticed before, 90 millimeters was the inner diameter of the bottle. So this is going to be the outer diameter of our latch, because the latch has to go inside the bottle. And 85 millimeters gives us a 5 millimeter gap to actually create the latch. So now to actually create the rectangle, we're going to click on the drop-down menu for create and go to rectangle and hit center rectangle. So now we have the center rectangle tool, and I will select the center of the circle and then drag it out. So any questions up to this point? No? All right. So I assume you guys are all good. So let's use the sketch dimension once again, and we will define this to be 20 millimeters on the short side and 100 millimeters on the long side. And I don't really care what length the 100 millimeters is. I just think it's a good even number. I just really care about these two sections right here, this section and this section. And you'll get to see what I'm talking about on the slide. And before we go any further, let's just save this. I'm going to name it cap, and I'll save it in the same location as before. All right, so now notice once this is saved, you have these two sections. We're going to be worrying about this section here and this section here. So these two sections we're going to be extruding. So back on the PowerPoint, you'll notice we're going to extrude these by 8 millimeters, and this is going to create the start of our latch. So once we hit finish sketch, I'm going to hit extrude, and I'm going to specify this region and this region. And we're going to say this is 8 millimeters. And you should end up with something like this. And before I continue, this is a good time to talk about the top left here. This section is very useful for making sure things are visible or invisible that you don't want to see. So for example, say if I want to see what this sketch is still. So I can highlight that and I can see my bottom sketch. So if I want to make the top sketch visible for whatever reason, I can go ahead and do that. And I can see the sketch here. But right now, since I completed it, I don't really have a need for it, but there are cases where this is really useful. So let's move on and create the latch mechanism. So, but before we continue, any questions?
Could you go over how to do the two parts again? I kind of missed.
Yes. Let's go over that again. Okay. Elsa, are you stuck on this part?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to the sketch. Let's go back here. All right. So currently, what are you struggling with? Do you have the two circles laid out? Let's
I
start with
do.
two circles.
I have those.
Okay. The rectangle, is that where you're stuck on?
Yes.
Okay. To create the rectangle, let's see if I can get my spotlight. Okay. So to create the rectangle, go ahead and hit create here.
Uh-huh.
See this button here? Go to
Yes.
rectangle and hit center rectangle.
I do not see a rectangle option.
You don't have a rectangle option?
Yeah, one sec. Okay, now I do.
Okay, cool. So now hit center rectangle. And yeah, that should be your center rectangle portion. So I'll just redo that portion again. See if I can.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
Oh, do you get it now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, just specify that to be 20 millimeters and 100 millimeters.
Cool.
And you should be in the clear.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, let's see if I can get rid of this. Okay, and I'm gonna just extrude these again. One here, 8 millimeters. And yeah, it should be here after you extrude those two sections. So going back to the slides, now we're going to create the snap portion of the latch. So that's going to be this little rectangle triangle section right here. So we're going to have to specify the measurements in the second picture, and we're going to mirror that on the opposite side, like in this picture right here. So yeah, let's get to it. So we're gonna have to create two sketches to create this. I've tried doing it with one sketch and it didn't work in the past. So to do this, go to create new sketch, and we're gonna specify this rectangle right here. It doesn't matter which side you're on since it's symmetrical. So we're gonna start off with the left side, and we're going to use the line function this time. And I'm gonna scroll in so I can see everything clearly. And let me get rid of this laser function thing. So as you can see, my cursor kind of snaps to certain locations. Right now it's snapped to the corner of this rectangle. So that's what I want. So I'm gonna make this go around to 5 millimeters, but so you can specify 5 millimeters, it does snap to that. And I'm gonna continue this, and we're gonna create the little triangle shape here. And like before, I don't care about the dimensions because I'm going to use the sketch dimension tool to specify this as 5 millimeters. Oh, it's done that weird thing again. Let me see if I can go the other way around. I might have to redo this. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's try again. So if I do this, then this. So make sure this is snapped to 90 degrees. And we're going to use sketch dimension again. And hopefully this time it's not behaving. Okay, sometimes sketch dimension is annoying to use, so I'm going to just leave it. I'm just going to specify from the get-go as 5 millimeters and not do sketch dimensions. So let's see, snap to 5 millimeters, and another line is going to be 3 millimeters this way. And we're going to snap this way. And I'm going to try doing sketch dimensions on this line, which should work to 3 millimeters. Okay, last try. Let's do, come on. Yeah, let's not do that. All right, so this side should be 5 millimeters and this side should be 3 millimeters. And to finish it off, we're going to connect the top and bottom of the triangle, just so we have this nice, so when my mouse hovers over this area, we have this triangle fully highlighted. And that when it's highlighted like this, that means this area is extrudable. So this area we can extrude, this area we can extrude, and most importantly, this area we can also extrude. And we're going to extrude this area all the way along this latch. So now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So any questions up till this point? All right, I'll assume none, and let's keep going. And now we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Same thing as before, one line 5 millimeters, one line at 3 millimeters, which is not specifying for some reason. 3 millimeters, and one more line to connect top and bottom of the triangle. So now we've created both sketches. So we have one triangle and two triangle, and we're going to extrude these two. All right, so now that we've done that, we're going to extrude these two along the latch. And this is where we're going to get more in depth with the extrude tool, because it's not as simple as it seems. So let's go back to the extrusion. So to extrude these two tools, to extrude these two triangles, we're going to extrude both of these triangles at once. And there's two ways to do this. We can use the, we can actually specify a plane that we want to extrude until. So if there's two planes, like say one plane here, one plane here, we want to extrude a shape on this plane to this plane. We can actually specify the shape and then specify this plane, and it will automatically extrude all the way until that plane. Oh, or you can just specify the distance, but either way works. So let's begin. So we're going to use the extrude tool once again. And if there are any questions until this point, feel free to ask. All right, so let's just continue. And we're going to specify this tool, this plane, and drag all the way here and hit this. And you might notice here, pay attention to this arrow, because this is the wrong direction. We want to go in this direction. And don't worry about the little red there. We're going to fix that later. So for beginner purposes, we can just hit -20, because that's the length of our latch. But we can also just do, if I put this to 0, if I specify the direction, I can also just simply click the plane that I want to extrude until, and it'll do that automatically. So either way, you can do -20 millimeters or specify the extrusion point. And before we hit OK, we want to change the operation from cut to join. Cut will actually take away material from anything that's in the shape's path. But we want to create a new, we want to add material to the shape. And after that, just hit OK, and we've created the cap. So any questions up till this point? Okay. All right. So this is
I got kind of lost during the triangle drawing section. So could you like go over that again real quick?
Okay. Well, please speak up sooner, because I would have helped you there.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
No worries. All right. So let's go back to this section here, wherever the heck I am. So in the triangle drawing section, what I've done here is I specified this length to be 5 millimeters. And usually I use sketch dimension, but for some reason Autodesk is weird and it went 5 millimeters in the opposite direction. So I just manually went up to 5 millimeters here. So let me redo this actually. Okay, so now that we've gotten rid of this, I'll redo this with you, Kyle.
Thanks.
So hit the line function here, and let the cursor snap to this bottom right side, bottom left corner, I guess. And see how it reads 5 millimeters here?
Yep.
We want it at 5 millimeters, so that's going to be our first line. And now we're going to create another line. Click again. We're still using the line tool, so yeah, this snaps to 3.125 millimeters, which is kind of annoying. But we can just while you're in this mode, you can hit 3 millimeters, and yeah, so you have 3 millimeters here. So are you good up till that point?
It's having some trouble drawing the line in the right place.
Oh,
okay, never mind. I got it. Okay, so 3 millimeters, you said?
Yep, and hit the line tool again if you're not in the mode, and then snap it to this location.
Yeah, got you.
And do one more just for sanity, just to create a full triangle.
All right, sounds good. I think I can handle myself from there.
Cool. And yeah, that should be the first side, and the second side should be should also be the same way.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So let me know once you've got that completed. So while Kyle is doing that, we'll talk about assembly. So we're not going to jump right into assembly right now because, like I said before, so part 2 is done. We're going to get into assembly later on. Dennis, do you have any questions? Right. I don't think so. Okay. So while you guys are getting that ready, we're going to create an assembly file. This is exactly the same as a drawing, so it's not that complicated, but the way we're putting together an assembly file is going to be a bit different because we're going to be inserting different files into the assembly. So like before, create a new design, and we're going to, and I'm going to name mine assembly, but you can name it whatever you want. So, and once we get to the data panel, we're going to get to a screen that shows body, cap, and assembly section. So, Kyle, have you finished your section yet?
I've drawn the triangles. I just need to extrude them.
All right, cool. That should be all right. So we'll move on to the to creating the assembly portion. So, like before, create a new design. There's nothing special in Fusion 360 about creating parts or assemblies. It's just new design. And now that we have the design, we're going to hit the Show Data Panel section. And you might notice here we have 2 files here, body and cap. And assembly is not here yet because we haven't set it yet. So to do that, go ahead and make sure, if you're in the home screen, make sure you're in the right file area. So for me, it's IEEE bottle v3, but for you guys, it's going to be IEEE bottle. So first things first, we're going to drag in one file. Don't double click on it, just hold it and drag it in. I have an error for some reason. Let me see. Oh, I have to save it. Okay, so let me just save this first. All right, so I'm going to save this as assembly. All right, so now it'll accept. Now we have assembly within IEEE bottle v3, and I'm going to hit. I'm going to drag in body. All right, cool. Now that we have it in, I don't really care about any of this, since this is going to be more or less our static foundation. And let me move this panel out of the way. All right, and now we have our body in. And so let's go back to the slides. So like before, we have the body in, but when we create the cap, it's going to come in upside down. To write itself up again, we have to rotate it 180 degrees about the x-axis. So let's go ahead and do that. So like before with the body, drag in cap. And you'll notice it spawns in here. So we want to get this out of the way of the cap because we don't want these two to interfere with each other. And now we're going to have to specify the angle. So you can do this one of two ways. You can either grab the graphical things here, or you can specify the angle here, which I'm going to do. I'm going to hit 180 degrees, and now it's flipped the correct way around. All right, so now we have a cap and we have a body. So any questions up till this point? All right, who's got questions? Let's move on to actually assembling these two. If you guys have worked with SolidWorks before, you guys are familiar with mates. And if you haven't, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. In Fusion 360, we use something called joints. So if you go to assemble here and hit joint, that's going to be the equivalent of a mate for you guys who use SolidWorks. So going back to the slides. So we're going to use the simple mate today since this is a beginner course. We'll get into more in-depth mates later on, joints later on, if you request it. So the two regions we're going to select is the top cylinder section and the bottom section of the cap. So before we do that, we have to hit the joint tool. So make sure that we're using the joint. To make sure we're using the joint tool, assemble, hit joint, and see this, some components have been moved. It's just being really annoying, so just hit capture position to keep them in the same place. So now to select the first component, I'm going to hit this area here, and most importantly, hit the center, this center area here. So now the first component has been selected. And the second component, I want to choose the bottom of this cap. So select the center smiley, blank smiley face looking thing here. And boom, there you go. Now your two pieces are mated together. And you can hit OK. And just for a finishing touch, I'm gonna turn off the joints so they're not visible. And that should be it. All right, so are there any questions up till this point? Is anyone struggling with how to use the mate functionality, or is everyone good? Everyone give me a thumbs up if you're good. Awesome. Okay, and at this point, we're basically done. And one last thing I want to show you guys, which is not on the PowerPoint, is how to change materials. The way to do this is we can click on right-click on document settings, and we can change the physical material. And for this case, we can do, let's choose something fancy. Let's go with, I don't know, let's do some fancy glass. Let's just do bronze glass. So if we choose bronze glass here, we have to hold on to it, and we can drag it and place it here. And it might take a minute. Oh, I think I actually have to go to the individual files. So go back to the individual parts files, and we can do the same thing. Right-click on document settings, and go to physical appearance. And if I just drag there, now we have a glass bottle. And I think this is another advantage for Fusion 360, because I think their rendering is a lot prettier than SolidWorks. And for the cap, I'm going to do carbon fiber just because I like carbon fiber. So to do that, I'm going to go to plastic, and CFRP is carbon fiber reinforced plastic. And boom, carbon fiber cap and glass bottle. All right, so now this assembly will probably have errors in it. So I'm going to, I can update, but let's see. I have to save this first. So once I save these two, the assembly is going to have errors. But all I have to do is go to the top level right here and right click and update all latest. So once I do this, it should update with all the physical materials. And this is also important to do whenever you make a change to a single part. you have to update your assembly. Otherwise, it won't show through. And boom, there you go. Carbon fiber cap and glass bottle. And with that, we're basically done. Hooray! You completed your first CAD project. All right, so if there's any other questions up till this point, feel free to ask. But other than that, we're basically done. How does it feel to finally create a CAD project for the first time? Awesome. I'm glad you're excited, Elsa. All right, and going forward, since this is IEEE, CAD's really useful for 3D printing, especially. I think that's going to be the first area that's going to be most helpful. But also, once you start to get more mechanical, you'll start to look at stuff like tolerances and threads and things like that, and that's where it gets more complicated. But it's really enjoyable because you can basically create anything you want. It's like unlimited Legos, in my opinion. So it's kind of fun. But other than that, yeah, that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll be around here to answer any more questions you guys might have. Right.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Elsa.